Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, testing. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Hey there, hi there, ho there, it's RHJunior, RHJunior, Reality Check Live. I have managed to lose the thingamajig I was looking for. I am coming to you live over the internet, live the systems of tubes, known as the inner tube, the interweb, the internets, by way of YouTube. We just want to welcome you once again to another broadcast of Good Lord Help Us All. There's no possible way to stop it. Spleen squeezins. Yay. Yay. Actual noise. La 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 la. La 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 la. La. Yeah. What more can we do? What more can we say? Once again, I swear I don't know what it is. Now whenever I adjust the volume, it stutters. Isn't that just ducky? Well, here I am. I'm feeling a little better. Finally, grocery shopping finally got done. I finally found somebody in the neighborhood who will do errands for me, who I can rely on. I finally found somebody else. Young lady, and she lives fairly nearby, and she runs errands for me, that sort of thing. And what does it tell you about the state of affairs I was living with? That I am astonished when my grocery shopping gets done the same day. Well, what does that tell you? I gave her my huge monthly grocery list, and she went out, and within less than 2 hours, she was back. What can I say? I have gotten used to absolutely. I complained about it a lot, but I was used to it. I complained about the guy that I had doing errands and doing shopping for me and stuff, but I kept going back, and I was used to it. And part of me felt like this is life, hardships all over, man up kind of thing going on. And I look at this, and he's supposed to be mowing my lawn, among other things. Got it mowed today with somebody else entirely. But I look back at this guy, and the trailer park administrator, supervisor, groundskeeper, whatever you want to call him. He was at my front door earlier today. He tell me, you gotta get this lawn mowed. It was pretty bestial looking. I'm not kidding you. I've still got stuff that's got to be. The guy who did the mowing is going to be coming back tomorrow and doing the trimming and chopping down the small trees that have grown up around the back of my house. And well, you basically get this. Is that even with all that work, I'm only going to be paying him like $30. But crazy, absolutely crazy. And I'm talking to him, and I said, well, I asked Josh to come do it, because Josh, I was under the impression that Josh worked for this guy, or did odd jobs for him at least, on some sort of semi-official basis. And, well, no, he doesn't. Josh does not. Not anymore. And the guy says, oh no, he doesn't do no work for me no more. He said, why not? You can't count on him for nothing. You can't rely on him. He leaves stuff undone. And and I'm like, and we just spent like 10 minutes just standing there. He's talking about how unreliable this guy is, and I'm like, yeah, I know now. Yeah, I know. I just, I've, That's the problem with me. I complain about everything, but I rarely complain to somebody who can do something about it. And when that somebody is me, I just stand there and look at the wall, going, "What am I supposed to do?" This is you live with what you choose to live with, and I chose to live with this guy who never finished mowing the damn lawn. Pardon my language. He didn't. He would come in, he would use this other guy's lawnmower, ride around my house a couple of times, leave huge patches undone, and weeds sticking up all over the place, and he would never do the trimming up work like he's supposed to. And he was charging me $40. $40. And he would say, "I'll be back tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow. I'll be next week." I've got stuff that I paid him for last year that he never got around to, and I haven't guts to complain to him because he gets mad and starts and storms off. I'm left sitting there, swinging in the breeze. Can't do a thing. So I put up with it, and I put up with it, and I put up with giving him a grocery list and having him come back 5 days later, 2 days, 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, a week and a half. I put up with all the bullcrap excuses for why he couldn't seem to do it, and I put up with all this other stuff. I put up with him, and I put up with all these little extra transactions that turned up on my card. Because I can't prove, I gave him the damn card, so it was, pardon my language again, but I did. I gave him a card. I trusted him. I trusted him more than I should have. Largely because I didn't think I had any choice. When you're cut off from, when you're cut off socially from your neighborhood, when you don't have, speaking, I got people, there are people down my street asked me if they could have permission to park their car in my little parking lot. I have a little parking space here next to my house, and I said, sure, no problem. I never got their name. I've talked to them. They've jump-started my van a couple of times for me, but I don't know their names. I keep forgetting their names, and I don't have their names. I don't know their phone number. I can't. And just trotting down the road to knock in their door, in my condition, I can't. Literally, it's a marathon undertaking just to go that far. And so I keep lingering. I keep hoping I'll catch sight of them out of the window. And the one or two times I've caught sight of them out the window, they were already jumping into their car to go do something, and I lost my nerve. I haven't been able to ask them for help. I can't ask them for help, and I've had, but Josh, he's the latest of a long series of people I've asked to do things for me and trusted to do things for me, and had him shaft me. Now, Josh is a likable guy. That's the thing of it. And every now and then he'll go out of his way and do something nice for you. But when it comes to relying on him doing something he says he'll do, or that he said he would do, relying on him to be someplace, relying on him to do something, relying on him to, you get my drift. It's like he doesn't have a clue. And I'll say another reason that I put up with it for so long is because, outside I didn't have anybody else to go to, is that I feel guilty about the fact that over the course of my life, I've been, I admit, over the course of my life, I've fallen short on being responsible myself quite a lot. Just couldn't keep, well, you get the point. And I feel guilty about that, and I've let it influence whether I put up with it from somebody else. Where do I get off? Okay, we got one person And, reliable as long as it's convenient for him. That's basically it. And this is something I fight with myself all the time, and try get off your butt and do what you're supposed to, kind of thing. And just gotta ride the spurs on myself sometimes. Anyway, this new kid, she's the fact that she simply, her grandma drives her around. That's the thing of it. So I feel, I don't know about that. I prefer it if she had transportation of her own, so I don't, put two people out of on a spot. But they're like, oh, we'll help you out with anything. No problem. But I made a point right from the start. I've paid her in IOUs currently, but as soon as the end of the month rolls around, she's going, and that Patreon money, the usual Patreon donations come in, be about $50 goes straight to her without a pause. Because what does that tell you? That grocery shopping, and got all done in one day, and that's miraculous for me. Of course, there's a couple items she forgot. I got to ask her to go to pick up, but she didn't. She didn't spend. She didn't somehow manage to spend all the money on my card and then come back with some of the items, not actually purchased somehow, or the wrong items purchased, or any of the other, and she managed to get back in the same day. So she's already got a stolen march on Josh. I've still got to pay Josh too for the things that he actually did. I'm thinking back in the corner, I asked him about just telling him, here, let me make a list of the things you didn't do, and some of the things that you spent that never seemed to show up at my door. So we'll just call it quits. He only seems to I got this impression when I first, the first time around, when he seemed to vanish into thin air for weeks at a time, and then he'd be at my door, boom, 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 boom. You need anything? I thought, yeah, but I'm betting you're needing beer money or something. Not that I've seen him drink, but you get my point. He only needs it when he only shows up when he's really hard up for some scratch. And I'm a little upset with that. But the thing of it is that I've had to deal with people all over the. I've hired various people to mow my lawn, for instance, and I'll hire them. They'll do the job 2 or 3 times, and suddenly I can't find them anymore because they moved out of the neighborhood. Or one kid will start up a lawn mowing business, and he'll next week. I had one guy come up. I was so desperate, I paid him $50 in advance to mow my lawn. A couple of days. Because, if you don't keep your lawn mowed around here, you can get get fines and crap written up on your behind. And you get in all sorts of trouble, and I can't afford any trouble. Anyway, I gave him like $40, $50 in advance, and he disappeared into the wild blue yonder. I don't know. I don't know what his thing is. I just know the guy has an ex-wife. He has 2 kids by that a new wife, and he's got and he's consequently got an entire library of excuses he can call up as to why he hasn't shown up or why he hasn't done something. Let's just leave this guy in the background. Let's leave him in the past. I'm going to pay him for what he did. He did mow the lawn a couple of times a week or so ago, and I've got to pay him for. And I'm tempted to just call him on that and say, "Good idea. You got things you were supposed to have brought back to me. You got things that you supposedly were supposed to do and you never did, and I paid you for. Tell you what, we'll just say bye-bye and call it even." But no, I'd rather hand him a 50 and say this. Hand him a 50 and say that's it. Bye. I tried to get him to write out receipts, and he, you know, paperwork. From now on, you know, I made you know, my executive decision is that from now on I write out IOUs to whoever does the, you know, the stuff that I asked for, and they come back at the end of the month, and I trade the actual money for the IOUs. I've put up with a lot from him, and I'm still putting up with crap from him, basically, because I don't want any trouble. I can't afford trouble. And he gets a bug up his arse and decides that he doesn't like me anymore. Well, I don't know what he could do. But I may just have, you know, I just bullet say, you shorted me. You know, and, you know, on this, and this. So, you know. He's already gotten fired by he doesn't have access to the groundskeeper's mower anymore because the guy got fed up with him. Anyway, a little tired of talking about the guy. But just, you know, thank you, Jesus. I finally found somebody who is at least a little bit more reliable. And failing all else, she has a grandmother who's going to ride her rails if she isn't. So, but I'm decided ahead of time. Anything I ask her, I'm going to, you know, she gets at least, you know, $10, something like that, just to keep things official, professional, and so I can look at the receipt and say, here you go, you know, and say you did this. You know. Anyway, I'm trying to get up to steam is basically what I'm doing right now. Just warming up. I'm feeling good. I finally got some food in me, you know. I was down to the, you know, I was literally down to, like, let's see, I had some shredded cheese in a bag, some margarine, whole refrigerator full of condiments that didn't go into anything. You know, that kind of thing. I got soup. I found a can of ravioli, you know, Chef Boyardee style. You know, generic ravioli, but I ate that last night with extra cheese, and I immediately regret it. I don't know what it is, though. This seems to be a common thing. I will ask somebody, I have to spell out, get the brand name. I say, get me some Kool-Aid. Get me some packets of Kool-Aid. In this case, the girl brought back these little generic, great value, little, you know, I wanted a dozen packets, you know, of Kool-Aid. You know, one of those ones where you take 2 packets, make up a gallon, you know. And she came back with this, like, you know, little box full of these little packets that you add to your bottled water. You know, pink lemonade, natural flavor. It's skinny enough so that you can drop it down the neck of the bottle. You know, it's not made for pitchers of Kool-Aid. You know, but by the time I figured out she hadn't got the right things, you know, I was already put up groceries and she had already left. So I'll talk to her. You know, I'll later. But I've had this problem before. I say, you know, I'll ask somebody for, you know, and I'll tell them to get something specific, and I'll give a name brand and people will get people will get get something that's not even a generic version. They'll get something approximately related to the concept. I told the guy I wanted 2 blocks of Velveeta. He comes back with instead of getting the full-size logs of Velveeta, you know how they are. They're sealed in aluminum foil, and they're just a couple, several pounds of cheese there. Cheese, melty cheese product. And he comes back with 2 little hand-sized blocks of cheddar. It's cheese. It's square. I don't know what he was thinking. I'm trying to think of the other. He's done this a couple of times. I told him Little Debbie snack cakes, specifically Little Debbie snack cakes, because let me tell you one thing: the generic versions that are around this area of the country, in this state in particular, they make name brand Little Debbie look like gourmet cakes. You know what I'm saying? Just awful. So, and he comes back with something he picked up at a dollar store. I don't know. It was like, crusty cakes or something. I don't know. And they were awful. And they were nothing like that. And as I recall, the package was half the size. You got to be careful. I found out you have to be very careful. You have to spell out exactly what you want. I made the point when she came in to pick up the groceries today. I had the girl that does chores, errands for me now. I had pictures on my computer screen to show her what I was talking about. Because I knew if I told her, there's these. I need you to get, there are these little cakes they sell in the bakery department at Walmart. Little pies, actually. Little pies. They're actual little pies. They're not like these Hostess, dipped in sugar crust things. There's actual pie. Little pie tin. They're called old-fashioned fruit pies. That's their name. They come in a little brown cardboard box, individually boxed. They're 50 cents each, and they come in all sorts of flavors. I mean, the cherry, blueberry, lemon. They occasionally have lemon. I may be remembering wrong. That may be part of the problem. Cherry, blueberry, apple, pumpkin, peach. You get the idea. I told her to get a dozen of those. I made sure, I knew that if I had just said, I wrote out old-fashioned, get old-fashioned fruit pies, a dozen. And she would have come back with something by Hostess. Or something even more more tragically generic and fossilized on a shelf than that. You tell them Kool-Aid, they think any powdered, you have to be specific, you have to spell it out. And I had like half a dozen grocery items, pictures from the Walmart site, and I said, this is what I'm talking about when I wrote this down. She still had a couple of things wrong though. She got me up. I said I want a bag of these Gorton's Fisherman beer battered fish fillet. The bag. She got the box, but she got me the bag, but it's it's a 10 fillet bag. I'm like wah. But this is tragic to say. She still again and again she's already done a better job than her predecessor. Yeah. Oh, you know what I'm talking about. Oh, I forgot they had pecan. If I'd have remembered the little pecan ones, I would have told her to get a few of those. I love pecan. I've got a bag in the fridge. Got like little cherry and blueberry and peach pies. She apparently couldn't find the lemon one. She must, they had these little lemon cake things that were almost identical in a box almost exactly same size, and she got those by mistake. But, hey, lemon cake, not too bad. You get what I'm saying? Sending somebody else out to shop for you is not fun. Heck, I'm not too thrilled with online shopping generally myself, because I go in there and I look it up. I've had several times I've gone on. I've bought clothes through various online sites, and I will order. I tell them, X, quintuple X, I get and it's God's own guess whether what they get me is actually going to be large enough for me. I get like 4X, 5X. Part of it is, my legs are so swollen and huge that even stuff that, even the sizes that fit normally on the top half of my body don't fit on the bottom half of my body. But, you order the biggest size in slippers they've got, and they don't fit over your feet. Whether or not there's... And this before my legs got as bad as they are. But you get the idea, Unless you go to the store yourself, pick the object up, feel it, try it, measure it. You're still playing a little bit of guesswork. It's really a drag. Really a drag. Would you think badly of me if I said my one lifelong dream would be to pet Fluttershy? I'm sorry. I don't lie about it. I'll say it. Fluttershy is my favorite pony. Yes, I'm a brony! Real in horror! Yeah. I watch this. I really don't know what to think about how people react. I really don't know how to think about how people react to. It just goes to show you can't please anybody. You can't please anybody. They bullcrap about how we want men to be more sensitive and more egalitarian and and be more open to their alleged feminine side. But God help the poor son of a humdinger who goes out there and admits to liking things that aren't particularly masculine. Holy crap! You got all these people that they make. Oh, I love Little Ponies. It's a great story, and the characters are horrible, and it's funny and well written, and and of course they gripe about it all the time, which is a true sign of a fan. That general rule is they wouldn't gripe so much as if they weren't devout fans of it. You know what I'm saying? But the instant they did, the mainstream media, which had been bellowing like a beached sea lion for years about how we need to make more gender neutral, etc. for young boys and young girls, and need to and along comes a show that not only little girls love to watch, but their big brother sitting next to them on their couch, and the parents sitting beside them. And these people lose the plot. I'm not kidding you. They just go completely off sides and start talking about how the male fans of My Little Pony are all perverts or man children or effeminate, and or just just they just basically jump in front of the camera with a big thumb and the finger on their forehead in the shape of an L on their forehead. They're such losers, and they're so effeminate, and they're so disturbing because they creep me out. And I've said it ever since the first season. Lauren Faust, all flaws aside, she won a lot of respect from me. She has a DeviantArt page, and one of the early comments by somebody was, "How does it make you feel to know that a bunch of sexually stunted man children are so obsessed with your show?" And she took that guy apart in her reply. I mean, she was polite, and she didn't make any any direct attack on it. She just disassembled him like she was taking apart a wind-up clock. And she said, "I'm very happy to have people that are open-minded, willing to watch the show. And I made the show to be watched by the entire family." And she just dismantled it. I couldn't think of anything. I just put the comment. I put this comment down below hers as, "Woman, you are the wind beneath my wings." Yeah. Oh, Sweetie Belle, you want to hug Sweetie Belle? Yeah. Yeah, go for that. Oh, let's admit it. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. Any of them, we'd pick them up and cuddle them. Pony! Scare the crap out of them, probably, but... Anyway. Like I've told this story before. I forget the name of the two guys. There are these two guys that do critiques of various anime shows. I haven't seen their channel in years, actually. At least a couple of years. I can't remember what it was. Two dudes who... I forget. It was something like that. They normally critiqued anime. And they stopped off and they had been getting a lot of people posting, would you do this? Would you, scope out this My Little Pony show? And they said, finally, we went out and did it, and said... And they came back and they said, we are going to have to revoke our man cards. And they did a show about it on the show premiere, and they'd been doing shows episodes on the series ever since. And one of the things they said, they started introducing, they went through the introduction of all the characters, and they said, if you hate Fluttershy, you hate life. And they said, Fluttershy, best pony. Yeah, I just don't know. I mean, I refused to watch it because I had gotten hints, secondhand hints, that this is just another girl power feminist manifesto disguised as a cartoon. It was like, I started to watch it, and I noticed some strange, at first I watched it, and I noticed there were only a couple of male characters, and none of them spoke. I thought, oh boy, they're going all whole hog with this. And I was off to the races. I thought they were going to have a show where only the female were intelligent, in fact, because you see the opening of the first episode, and there's Twilight and Spike being towed by two Pegasuses in harness, and she speaks to them and says thank you, and they don't speak. They whinny at her. I'm like, okay. And I don't, you can say I was dumb, but I'm not so much. I wasn't so much dumb as gun shy. Okay. I have seen feminists do absolutely unbelievable things. Just absolutely destroy a children's show. I've seen them absolutely destroy book series, and I've seen how they behave, and I've seen how just the absolutely barmy, bat poo, insane things that come out of their mouths on a regular basis. Things that would have gotten them committed in an earlier era, and I wouldn't have put it past a militant feminist to do just what I'm describing. Make a show where all the male characters either don't exist, or they are or they're just mentally retarded animals. But good Lord. But anyway, I had to sit down. I had to make myself watch the show, because I was, like I said, I was gun shy. I'd watch a few minutes of it, and then it started to look like it was going to go off the rails, and I was, I don't want to watch this. And I'd turn it off, and I'd walk away, or go to something else. And they go, okay, let's watch the rest of it. By the third by the end of the first episode, I was like, I did not like Giggle at the Ghosties. I'm really not particularly fond of the musical numbers that they do for the show. Very few of the musical numbers have really, pleased me personally, because for one thing, I don't like cutesy poopsy, and some of the just treacle, just yeah. But anyway, I finally watched the whole episode, and I'm like, this wasn't too bad. Let's watch another episode. And I watched another episode. By the third episode, Dragon Shy. By the episode, I'm going, why do I like this? Why am I watching this? Why can't I stop watching? And I was hooked. And the more I saw of it, the more impressed I was. They had tried, some people had tried to prop up Lauren Faust as some sort of feminist icon, and I was like, but then I got to actually watch her show, and read her commentary, so on and so forth. Entirely different animal. She's one of these few people, as I keep saying this, one of these few people who's figured out you don't have to tear someone else down to boost yourself up. And she also figured out that you don't have to, wave the girl power flag to make a point. And I liked what she was representing. She came across now. Think about this. In any other children's show, Rarity would have been the villain. She would have been immensely, at the very least, she would have been immensely unlikable. She would have been nastier than Diamond Tiara. She would have been utterly unlikable, cowardly, selfish, vain, petty. Just, no redeeming qualities whatsoever. Yet somehow she keeps hanging around with everybody else. But no, they didn't. She has rather dramatic flaws. She is vain, and she's overly melodramatic, but at the same time, surprise, she's generous. She's got a surprising amount of guts. I mean, first, the series premiere, she kicks a manticore in the face. Any other TV show, she'd be off in the back, and you see all six of them. Lauren Faust said this was deliberate. You've got an introvert and an extrovert, a workaholic and a party animal, a girly girl and a tomboy, a intellectual and a more physical character, and just every possible variation on being a girl. Every possible variation on being on a female character, rather, which translates. Her whole point was there is no wrong way to be a girl, and by extension, no wrong way to be a person. She took City Mouse and Country Mouse, and took it in 6 different directions, and that's very insightful. None of them is or was elevated above any of the others. You saw that they all had winning points and they all had flaws, and that they were all likable and in real life would be worthwhile people. They sort of fumbled with Rainbow Dash, I have to say. Rainbow Dash doesn't get too many opportunities to show her better side. She's I think that's another example. In any children's show, the jock is usually the jerk, and they can't quite bring themselves to stop doing that. But she has very few moments where she really shines, as compared to the others. But when she does, she really pulls out the stops. Like Sonic Rainbow. Her whole character in one. Hold on, I'm coming. And when she finally went to flight, fed up with the shenanigans that were going on with the lightning, she went in and said, "If this is doing things, forget you," and gives them back the badge. I mean after all those seasons where she's willing to do anything to be a member of the Wonderbolts. And she drops it like a hot rock. The instant that the instant that they show her that the instincts that they are not up. Gotta say though, frankly, I think it was a mistake the way they handled her becoming a Wonderbolt. After all this time, and after all this time she's dealt with them, and they have turned out, the Wonderbolts have turned out, let's be generous here, to be less than the heroic icon presented as. They tried to scam her into leaving her own team. They have fallen down. They've fallen down on the job every single time that they've appeared. And the moment they had an excuse despite everything, despite the fact she had saved some of their lives, they were willing at the drop of a note to believe that she had pulled a fast one on them, and they were going to kick her out for life. These are characters that are the exact opposite of loyal. Or even competent. I'm like, guys, come on, back up. These are supposed to be, they're supposed to be heroes of Equestria, I'm sorry, but right to the very end, Rainbow Dash is fangirling all over them. Even when she's a member of their team, and they pull a stunt on her that would have gotten anybody else, fed up to the teeth and walked out. I'm sorry, that one episode where the jacket. They give her an insulting nickname. She's a national hero. She's a better flyer than any of them. She is literally the fastest flyer in America. She's a national hero several times over. What, 5, 6 times over? And despite the fact that she has jumped through every hoop that they have thrown in her path, despite the fact that they owe her big time. I'm sorry, they owe her for their lives. They owe her for how badly they dissed her at the Grand Galloping Gala. They owe her for falsely accusing her. They owe her for trying to scam her out of her own team at the Equestria Games. In her horseshoes, in her position, I would have gone out, hired somebody with hands to stand in front of me and give them all the finger before I force-fed lightning. Before I fed them that jacket torn up into bitty pieces. It bugs me that it's, no matter what, it's always, Rainbow Dash back to square one. Even when she's in the right, somehow she's the one that has to learn the lesson. I don't know. Anyway, moving on to new topics, because I'm sure that My Little Pony talk is boring you all to death. I haven't done any writing on any of the fanfictions lately. Just trying to noodle it up, I guess. Did I send him that? No, I didn't send him it. I better mail him that. I gotta mail this guy his RHJunior on a kangaroo. Commissions. Opening up. Ticking me off. I haven't been able to open any DVDs yet. I still got to get the cleaning stuff and the repairs to try and repair the DVD burner. Get some new DVDs or something. Still waiting. Still waiting for. Still waiting. Still waiting for the world to change. Hey, what is this? Why won't it open up? Did they lock it or something? Damn it. I don't know what I'm going to do about my email. You know, all the shenanigans Google's getting up to. You wondering when the Gestapo's going to come march in. Oh no! Now what to flap? Oh, this is not good. They're having trouble connecting to Google. Oh, you heard about that memo that went around. The guys, they got mad. The women that work at Google got mad that the guy put in his memo that women were emotional and irrational. So, they stayed. They're staying home from work because they're so upset. Like, dang, he got you pegged wrong, didn't he? All right, there we go. What are my most hated tropes? Most hated tropes. Things I hate to see in a story. There are certain plots and things that I hate to see. There's certain stories I'm sick of. Rich guy becomes a jerk. I'm kind of tired of that one. Or just good luck. Good luck makes you a jerk. Somebody becomes rich, and they instantly become a jerk. Or they suddenly develop superpowers and they become an a-hole. Or they get, or then there's the ones who suddenly, for some reason, literally start having supernatural luck and they become arrogant and cocky, and you get the idea. I hate that trope because, I'm sorry, the implications are terrible. Basically, what these writers are saying, you got a character that suddenly comes into a big amount of money, and he suddenly starts treating all his friends like jerks, and then at the end of it all, he loses all the money and suddenly realizes, gee, I need to stop being a jerk, and goes back to his friends, and they forgive him and everything. The implication is that the only reason your character is nice is because he's poor, or unlucky, or powerless. Think about it. It's a terrible implication. I can name some. What do I think ruins stories? Bad endings, sad endings. Things turn out bad. I don't go. I don't like that. The world is full of enough tragedy. We don't need to be making more. Thank you. I read and watch. I read comics and I read books and I watch movies and I play games for escapism, to get away from the heartbreak of the world. I don't need to play a game, to play a video game where the good ending is where everybody dies. I don't need to read a book where everybody comes to a tragic end. Squirrel Girl put it this way, when one of those fourth wall moments. She was looking out the audience. She says, remember when comics were a world you wanted to escape into, not from? Enough said, Tragedy and nihilism. We don't need that. Here's another one. Liberal crap. I'm sorry. I've lived on this planet 46 years, and left-wing bull. The stories that you don't see this very much. You don't see this very much in overtly conservative stories. But when a leftist writes a story, suddenly the president, he's named W and he's a chimpanzee in a suit, They're subtle as a hand grenade in a barrel of oatmeal, for one thing. And was your objective to trick me into reading so that you could piss me off by insulting the values that I and tens of thousands of generations have held dear? A liberal has to go miles out of their way and invent the most ridiculous rationalizations to become offended by conservative values. They have to imagine that Mario rescuing the princess from a horrible monster is misogyny somehow, and spend months ranting and raving and writing long screeds about it. Anywhere else, somebody, in any other realistic circumstances, the hero rescues the damsel in distress. That's recognized as, heroism. And noble in its own right. Girl power. That one makes a story suck wind. Okay, how many of you have seen the Disney sequel to Peter Pan? The first Disney Peter Pan movie. It was let's say it spelled it out. You missed. You didn't miss the very subtext that. Peter Pan's home, Treasure Island. What is? I keep forgetting. What is the name of Peter Pan's island? Peter Pan's island. Not Pleasure Island. Not Treasure Island. Not the land of make believe. I can't believe I've forgotten that. It's been years. I can't believe I've forgotten something like that. Anyway, the original Peter Pan, Disney Peter Pan, the writers were savvy enough to point out, this island is a paradise for a boy. Neverland. They point out, Neverland is a paradise for a boy. It's not so hot for a girl, especially when the girl is expected to be mommy for everybody. Then they make, so they were at least tipping the hat to the realities of the story, But the sequel, Return to Neverland, where Wendy's grandchildren, I think, I mean, they're just gratuitous girl power. Gratuitous girl power. GRRRL. They make this new Wendy. Suddenly they're all all the Lost Boys. She arrives. They treat her as an equal, and they make her the first lost girl, and and she's all empowered. And the movie ends with her and Wendy rescuing Peter Pan from Captain Hook. With everybody applauding her, all the Lost Boys applauding her and cheering her on. Mary Sue! Mary Sue! Mary Sue! Just terrible. It was terrible. It really was. I had the tragic misfortune of seeing it in the theater. And I'm sorry, but the first Peter Pan movie was far more quote-unquote empowering of girls than the second one was. Because in that movie, the girl was the civilizing influence. And she made her mark, despite not being a swashbuckling hero like everybody else, she made her mark by being the adult one. And pointing out that she didn't have to even like the things the boys did, or be like them, to be effective and influential. And she didn't have to render the males in her immediate environment impotent to do it. Come to it again. The only liberals seem to, anybody that follows a little dogma, the only way they can lift themselves up is by tearing other people down, and they don't, and they never stop tearing other people down. Why? Because to stop means to admit that they've reached their goal, and to reach their goal means they are no longer victims, and no longer play the audience for sympathy, pity, and free handouts. They're not interested in really elevating themselves. They're interested in maintaining themselves as a perpetually offended class to whom everybody else owes something. But I'm getting off track. It's in a story. It's terrible. It's terrible writing. Because it's unrealistic and it is aberrant to everything we know about human nature. Just like every other leftist screed. I remember reading a fantasy novel. It was set in an alternate world, of course, where there had been some sort of great world collapse, and somehow civilization had been rebuilt where everything was a matriarchy. And not even in the real sense that a matriarchy forms. In the real world, a matriarchy is where you have one dowager grandmother who rules over the family and the household and the community with an iron fist, and keeps all the daughters in line. Feminists don't like that model. But in their world, women were the aggressive, dominant gender, and men went around effeminate, spraying themselves with perfume, and so on and so forth, and were subservient to women in every regard. And basically, she just took, it basically just switched genders. She could have rewritten this, the author could have rewritten the story with the male characters as female characters as, and it would have been, just another typical fantasy novel. But the way they wrote it, the way she did write it, it was like sucking vinegar through your teeth. It was, because the behavior of the characters with women, physically and emotionally domineering men, was just so unreal. Your suspension of disbelief just went out the window, and you're just, great. I'm reading I'm reading a women's rights chick tract. When they try, I'll admit it. I leverage conservative topics and issues into my writing all the time. I leverage religious, Christian issues into my stories all the time, and people people tend to complain about it a lot. I have contended in the past that a large percentage of the complaining and the unhappiness with those stories comes from people who wouldn't notice if they were reading a story that was just as proportionally leftist. But I admit, it's one of my vices, addressing the probability bomb. The probability bomb was me trying to do something challenging, and it is. I don't know if it's having the effect I want. I'm trying to do too many things at once with it, I think. But the objective was to challenge the precept, challenge the concept that science is automatic. Science is scientific, therefore it's atheist. And the universe runs on evolution. It has to, or it isn't real good science fiction. I wanted to challenge the notion that it has to be automatically Darwinist. And the fact that I chose a Patreon, the fact that I chose a Kickstarter, a Kickstarter project to try and do that. Again, this is one of the things that I finalized my decision on what the story would be after I had more or less started the Kickstarter drive. You know, and I haven't had anybody complain. I'll say this much: I haven't had anybody complain. You use money for this religious crap. But on some level, I feel like I feel like that I probably should have saved that story idea for another project entirely. Part of the reason I did is because until the Kickstarter fund drive done, I did not know how many people or characters I was going to have in the story, and that was going and what kinds of characters, and so on and so forth. So I had to some degree what the kind of story I was going to tell would depend on how many pledges and how many different people I got in the fundraiser. I'm just grateful that nobody has objected to the direction I took the story. Saying that they were a patron of this story, and then they didn't, and they don't appreciate. If you run a Kickstarter where you say you're going to rebuild a replica of an ancient sailing vessel, somebody might take umbrage if it turns out what you're building is a replica of Noah's Ark. Do you get what I'm saying? But then again, I've never been bashful about my beliefs, or about my stands, or about my political views. So I think that the sponsors could pretty well guess what I was, they could pretty well guess that whatever I did was going to have those values in it. Is anybody listening? Say you're a jerk, Ralph. Say something. Say we think you're a genius, Ralph. We think you're a jerk, Ralph. Say something. I'm looking at the channel right now. I'm looking at the chat channel. Pardon? It's a gas. It's a gas. Boom, diggy, boom, diggy, boom, diggy, boom. Okay. A little cold. Well, actually, I'm hot. I got a cold vent blowing on me. Still hot in here. It's probably going to be later tonight before before I really buckle down with the drawing. I can shoot my mouth off, but that doesn't burn nearly as many calories. I swear, all these events that are happening in the year. Oh, guess what? Some country over in Europe, they had some lunatic. Can you say Muslim? Take another truck and drive it into a crowd of people. You're not allowed to say Muslim. That's not making the headlines. They're still too busy freaking out over. I don't know. Ow, ow, ow. Ow. Yeah, that one messed up video that just passed. I have no idea what that is or why it does that. Wrong file type or something. Let's see. I don't like wireless mice. I don't. I've got enough troubles in my life without worrying if the battery's dead in my mouse. That's a pain in the butt. Oh, the cable is in so much. No, it's not the cable that's in the way. It's not the cable that's a big problem. Don't understand people that like them. I don't. My favorite genre of music? I don't have a particular favorite genre of music. I used to, when I was much younger, I used to love, space music, new wave, new age, synthetic music. Still like it every now and then. And then I got on a kick where I was crazy about Celtic, Irish, Celtic, really old bardic stuff. I listened to a lot of PBS late night, something like 11 o'clock at night. I'd be listening to Hearts of Space, or it was the name of the show, Hearts of Space, or I forget what the name of the other one was. Some Celtic show. Oh, it's pretty much as everybody predicted. They've torn down a bunch of statues, legally and illegally. And now they're demanding that they're demanding that statues of George Washington come down, and statues of Teddy Roosevelt, and so on and so forth. Look, there's an interesting point is that somebody made about the whole war with the South. The South versus the North, and in the Civil War and the slavery issue and everything else, is that the Democrats in the North lobbied just as fiercely to keep slavery legal back then as the ones in the South. It wasn't, the conflict over slavery wasn't between the states. It was between the Democrats and the Republicans. The Republicans wanted to revoke it. Of course, Abraham Lincoln was more interested in preserving the Union than he actually was in ending slavery, but it says something that he was part of the Republican Party, which largely was founded to end slavery. The war between the states brewed up along parallel lines, or along intersecting lines, rather. The majority of people in the South, yes, everybody loves to point out that the rhetoric in the proclamations, the declarations of independence by each of the states as they joined the Confederacy, many of them included rhetoric about preserving the institution of slavery. But again, that was politicians talking. The majority of people in the South didn't own slaves. They were going to war because they kind of took objection to the fact that the Northern Army was marching down into their country, into their states, and killing people. In fact, that's largely the reason there were several states that were on the fence. And then the Union armies started shooting up place, and they said, no, and this appalled them, and they said, no, if this is how the Union's going to go, we're joining the South. The whole slavery issue was, was a whipping post that Northern politicians strapping the South, in spite of the fact that the Northern states had slaves too. The Northern states had slave traders, and the Northern states were profiting off the Southern states. In fact, that was another key issue, because they had the North had passed tariffs and taxes on the things that the South produced. Made it impossible for them to compete. Made it impossible for the Southern states to compete in the international trade. Taxes pushed the prices so high. And the only way that the South could do business was to sell their produce to the North. The North treated the South like a chattel state. And whenever the South tried to make a move to rectify this situation, Northern politicians would run around screaming, yelling, waving the bloody shirt, and getting people to side them. Oh, we got to stop those filthy slavers. They didn't really care. The North didn't really care about slavery. Not until halfway through the war, when they needed a propaganda drum to beat. The North was not doing well in the war. People were getting sick of dead bodies coming home. Especially in light of the hypocrisy of the whole deal, is that America had done the exact same thing to Great Britain that the South was doing to the North. They left. They tried to leave peaceably, but the North wouldn't let them. Yes, slavery is evil. Slavery is wrong. Buying and selling human beings as property. There's a simple fact that it is immoral. It is immoral to force somebody else to work for you against their will. Would that the people that claim to value that moral would actually practice it in the here and now. I've talked about this before. I tend to drift off into these particular topics. They're like ruts, wagon rail ruts I get stuck in. I don't know how I got from where's my favorite genre, what's my favorite genre of music, all the way over to the war between the states. The War of the Northern Aggression, as the Southerners called it. Well, what I was saying is that it was not, the racism was not an institution of the South, it was an institution of the Democratic Party. It was Southern Democrats who started the Ku Klux Klan. It was Northern Democrats who had lobbied to try and keep slavery legal. And there you have the whole ball of wax. Half the reason that, part of the reason that the left is pushing so hard to get these statues destroyed and all these names of various Southern generals and heroes torn down is because they want people to know as little about the real history of the Civil War as possible. In all the years I was going through school, nobody brought up this question. Nobody brought up this question. If the North was fighting the Civil War to end slavery, why didn't they do anything? It was only after the South tried to leave that the North pulled out its guns and started shooting. It seems to me that they cared more about the fact that the states wanted to secede than the fact that they wanted to own slaves. But nobody asked that obvious question. Nobody mentioned that idea to me as a kid. It was always in school. It was always about how the evil South and its slaves versus the noble North and its freedom-loving heroes. I think that if the South had stolen a march on them, and actually the South at several points they were willing to give up slavery. There's talk among their leaders, before the war started. Maybe if we offer to let our slaves go, they'll let us go. And one of the diplomatic approaches they took, the South sent diplomats over to Europe, to France, Spain, and England, and their deal was, if you will help us, we'll let our, one of the things we'll do is we will instantly release all our slaves. Because you object to that so much, we'll drop it like a hot rock. France went for the deal. England didn't, largely despite France. Because France had said, if England goes along with us, so will we. And England said, screw you, And there went the South's last hope. But most people know that these very few people know outside of highly domestic that the Confederate Constitution spelled out that any union could abolish slavery if it so wanted, without needing the permission of the other states, which is more than the Union offered. Black soldiers in the Confederate Army were, by order, paid as much as the white soldiers. While in the North, black soldiers earned a fraction of what the whites did. There were free black people living all over the South. While in the North, there were entire towns that passed ordinances forbidding black people from living in there. And when the North and the South went to war, it was the North where they had lynchings of black people. I think the main reason they are trying to smear, my God, they are out there trying to claim that the Civil War South was the same as Nazi Germany. Last time I checked, the South wasn't making lampshades out of human skin. But again, I've harped on this. Again and again and again and again. I apologize for that. I will go on to let's go on to any topic at all. We need something new to talk about, please. I love how I can't turn on the weather website anymore without seeing some sort of hint of incense being burned to the global warming scam. There's two websites that get the weather from: Weather and AccuWeather. I used to go to weather.com all the time. It's based off one you see in the cable TV. Weather.com, and I don't know what it is. The weather.com site is complete crap now. It bogs and it lags. I don't know. It's like they filled it with 10 million Facebook video thing. It's just slow. It does not work, and it lags, and it takes forever for all the graphics to upload. So I go over to AccuWeather.com. It pops right up. And there are far fewer links to 10,000 videos talking about how global warming is destroying the world and it's all America's fault, Let's go back to another topic. Let's go to a topic that things that ruin a story. Things in a story. I've said this. I've said it in different ways, but when in a story where there is no good side. I saw this one comic online. It's a World of Warcraft comic. The guy was talking about the Jade Forest arc. For those of you who don't know World of Warcraft, they introduced Pandaria, a new continent with panda people on it. And you can make yourself a Pandaren, panda character, which I liked, which was cool. But in Pandaria, they have these creatures, these evil spirits called the Shah. They're dead black and white looking things, and just evil spirits that destroy. They break out and they destroy everything, and they are produced by, of all things, negative emotion, fear, rage, jealousy, violence and aggression. And here you come. Here comes the Alliance, and here comes the Horde. The Alliance is there primarily because the Crown Prince was on a ship that shipwrecked somewhere on the Pandaren continent, and one of the major story arcs is that you're trying to find this kid. And meanwhile, I don't know why the orcs are there, but the orcs and all their friends show up, because new land to conquer, right? And of course, because you're there, and because you're just these violent outsiders, your violent hate, your violent outsider nature, and the fact that you are constantly at war with the orcs and the orcs are at war with you, causes the Shah to start exploding out of the ground all over the place, to the point where you finally get to one of the sacred territories. This was an area that was unlocked after you've this golden, basically a huge golden pagoda or temple, where they had, it was called the Jade Forest. This beautiful area, serene, and neutral territory, safe from all evil, etc., etc. But because you're there, never mind the fact that the leader of the orcs, the leader of the Horde, is a raging warmongering psychopath. Somehow, both sides both the Alliance and the Horde. At the end of it all, the Jade Forest is a wreck, and somehow it's the fault is the Horde and the Alliance are both equally at fault. Never mind that apparently the Alliance was supposed to stand there and let the Horde rip the country a new one, and then let the Horde kill them. And the guy was writing this comic, and this little icon representing Blizzard comes in and says, "Ooh, look who just finished Jade Forest arc. How does it make you feel knowing that you helped devastate this beautiful, tranquil land of thousands of years?" And the guy says, well, basically says, "Well, screw you." Was there any other missions or plot lines I could take? No. Was there anything that I could have done for my character? Anything that my character could have done to change the outcome? No. And who wrote this heads you lose, heads you lose, tails you lose story? And the Blizzard icon goes, well, I did. So there was nothing I could do, and yet you're trying to get me to make me feel guilty about it? Well, hey, we just want an emotional reaction. Here's an emotional reaction for you. he's like, well, what? And Blizzard was like, well, what you going to do about it? He says, oh, I don't find another game to play where I'm not being railroaded the villain. I hate that equivocation. I hate it. That nobody is on the right. Nobody is in the right. Nobody's on the good side. Nobody's. I hate that with games like World of Warcraft and WildStar and well, pretty much every game where there are two factions and the player can sign up for either one. You're supposed to swallow the idea that neither side is morally better than the other. If I could make a movie, what would it be? Oh, you're asking the wrong guy. What movie would I make? I mean, that's I can think of lots of things I'd like to see in this movie. I have a lot of stories I've written over the years that I would like to see. Fantasy. See it as a movie. Would I try and make a movie of any particular story? Oh, I don't know. I can think of dozens of ideas. And I can imagine just how badly they turn out. What it takes to make a movie, that is well beyond me. Because basically, there's no place in... there's so many people that make a movie. It's really a miracle that any movie comes out that actually pleases anyone. Because you've got the director, you've got the producer, you've got the script, you've got dozens with their own creative vision, nearly pulling in different directions. And all of them playing politics, dirty, all of them playing dirty pool to get their way. And I bet you anything, every last person that works on a movie, they finally sit down and see the screening, the final premiere, and all the people that were, the creative people that were in charge of it. This is really not what I had in mind. I don't know how people that actually produce these things do it regularly. I don't know how they do it. How they can look at something that was taken almost completely out of their control at several points and go, yeah, that was my vision. This is why we have editors. This is why we have director's cuts of everything. I've got the director's cut version of Superman too. In my DVD collection. And I'll tell you, the director's cut is very, very different from the original Superman 2. For one thing, they used a much smaller set for the honeymoon suite, at the Niagara Falls Hotel. And the way that Lois Lane uncovers Clark, Superman's secret identity. She fell off. That whole thing, she fell into the river and got, nearly half drowned herself trying to trick Clark into turning into Superman. After that, they go back in the original director's cut, they go back to their hotel room. And she's sitting there, and they're talking, oh, I can't believe I fell for that. I can't believe that I thought you were Superman, and I made a real mistake, and I'm sorry about it. And she pulls a gun out of her purse, turns around, and fires it into his chest. And you're sitting there, ah! And freezes up. Instantly, he turns from Clark Kent into Superman. He stands up and his shoulders broad, and he freezes and he says, "So you caught me." And he pulls off his glasses and says, "Lois, that was so reckless. What if I hadn't been? What if it had been just Clark Kent?" And she looked up and it wouldn't have mattered. I loaded the gun with blanks. I said, "That's my girl. That's my Lois Lane." I'm like, that's my Lois Lane right there. Smart. She didn't turn when Superman was around. The old Lois Lane, people don't like her. A lot of the feminist-minded don't like the old, golden age Lois Lane, because she was always, oh, will Superman ever date me? Will Superman ever marry me? Blah 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 blah. But in the she had a lot of different interpretations, and some of them were a lot tougher. In the original Superman cartoons, the animated ones that were shown in movie theaters, she was a tough cookie. They had one scene where she was in a car fleeing from some gangsters. They opened fire on it. She pulled out a Tommy gun out of the back seat, leaned out of the window, and fired back. She wasn't just she wasn't just a dim bulb damsel in distress. And in the original director's cut of Superman, she wasn't a little dim bulb either. Now, there were some things in the original director's cut that were kind of stupid, and near the end, they were kind of badly made. And it was a good thing that to the director they went with the different ending. I'll leave that beside. That just didn't work. The way they ended it in the final cut that went to theaters was a lot better. Anyway, what kind of movie would I make? I don't know. Mean live action, animation, puppets, stop motion? Well, it depends on the story. It really does. I do not have the patience to even animate a GIF, so I would have to totally put my faith in whoever did the animation. Now, I could see, of course, Tales of the Questor would have to be animated. Or a movie about Tales of the Questor would actually be an episode, a single story arc in Tales of the Questor. It wouldn't be the whole Tales of the Questor. It would probably be about one adventure he had. One of the lost relics. And it would begin, and it'd sort of be open-ended, beginning and end. We found the Mystic Harp and on to our next adventure, kind of thing. Will we ever reach the end? I don't know. Sort of like the Pokemon movies. Kid never gonna stop walking. But it wouldn't be a story that gave you closure. Now, the Sanguine Chronicles would be live action. And I'm really overdue. I really want to sit down and do a huge rewrite, start over from scratch, and rewrite the Sanguine Chronicles, spruce it up a bit, pull it a bit better together. It's going off in too many directions right now. It's too many things happening in just the first story. That many things that are happening right now in many of the things that have happened in the Sanguine Chronicles already. They're the sort of thing that put out over 2 or 3 books in a series. Realistically, getting discovered by Aconite, Aconite's story arc, the goth vampire band, all that would be the first issue. That would be the first volume, and the second one would be gangsters getting involved as they are, and and the third would be and so on and so forth. I put too much story arc to one story, but it would be live action, and it would be or a thriller comedy, horror comedy, something like that. It's all about, it all depends on what kind of story I'd be telling. Now, I thought that the story of Noah's Ark could, read the chapter, read the first book of the Bible, read Genesis, read the accounts of the flood and all, what happened before and what happened afterward. It's only 1 chapter long. And not even that. Not even a full chapter, if I recall correctly. And yet, we're talking about a story about the end of the world, literally. The world, civilization and humanity had been growing and expanding and building and multiplying for something like 2,000 years between Adam and Noah. A lot of people would ask, why isn't there any remains of that civilization? Pointed out. First of all, the models most researchers have about how the flood would have happened and what it would have done. Basically, it would have the upheavals, the tectonic upheavals that the flood would have caused. If their models are correct, it would have ground everything to mulch. And it may very well be that we've got a couple of artifacts left over from the pre-Diluvian period, and we just don't realize it. One researcher pointed out, the Sphinx. Now, one thing most people don't notice about the Sphinx, 2 things actually. What they don't know is that the Sphinx, its head is too small, body. And what I mean by that is that the statues of sphinxes everywhere. Proportionally, the heads of these sphinxes are much larger compared to their bodies than the head of the Great Sphinx is compared to its body. And the researcher pointed out the reason for that is that over most of history, the Sphinx has been buried in the desert sands up to its neck. And when it wasn't a desert, it was buried up to its neck. The head of the Sphinx has also been recarved several times, he believes. The current face on the Sphinx is not the original. And here's the real killer. You look at the head of the Sphinx, and you can see the wind, the desert wind and sand blowing across it. Now, you can tell the difference between erosion caused by wind and erosion caused by wind. Generally sharp grooves, and the head of the Sphinx shows that. Many of the stones of the pyramid show that, and many of the things they find in the desert, they show that. A sharp-edged groove, but stone water is smoothed, rounded. He says one of the things he likes to do, this archaeologist, he talks about the seminars, about his theories. And one of the things he likes to do, he'll put a slide, it'll only show a wall of rock. And he'll ask archaeologists in the audience, how was this rock eroded? Tell me, look, how was it eroded? And without a fail, every single one of them in there say that was eroded by water. You can tell by the runnels through it and everything. And he every time. And then he shows the rest of the image, which reveals it to be the side of the Sphinx's body. He loves pulling that fast one. He believes, the Sphinx is thousands of years older than the pyramids and even than Egypt. That basically he believes that the Sphinx was found by the people who began Egypt, and they built they built up around it. And as old as he thinks it is, judging by the difference between in the sizes, the erosion levels, so on and so forth, my thought is that you've got a statue here where the head is worn with its statue here sitting in the middle of what has been a desert for thousands of years. Yet its lower half of its body looks like it was eroded by torrential amounts of water. Let me think. When's the last time we heard about the entire world being covered in great torrential amounts of water? It just might be that the Sphinx predates the flood. That's just my theory. I'm no archaeologist, I'm no geologist. But what I've learned and what I know and what they're talking about, it fits. But people talk about why aren't there any remains of the civilization? Every now and then they'll do something. They'll find like a gold chain embedded in a lump of coal. Which puts it, way sooner than the evolution put the dinosaurs. Puts it way down there at the bottom, down there with the trilobites. They found fossilized human footprints, sandal footprints. You can even see the stitching of the sandal and the leather with a trilobite squashed in the heel. That collapses the geologic column in years. Now, that's how little would be left of a civilization that had been buried by the flood. If you ever watch these episodes, A World After Man, look it up on YouTube. The World After Man. They describe what would happen to our civilization if it all just disappeared. No catastrophe, high waves, no earthquake, no worldwide flood, nothing. We all just up and left. Nearly all civilization would have crumbled back into soil in a century. Skyscrapers that you see all over New York, you've seen all these posters 1,000 years in the future, and they're somehow traipsing through the remains of New York City. Not a chance. Not a chance. They ran alone would pull any of the skyscrapers in New York to dust within 2 centuries. After the first century had passed, it'd be it would be perilous to pass through the cities because there would be these skyscrapers collapsing without warning. Can you dig what I'm saying? Paper would have crumbled into loam. Plastics would have corroded after 1,000 years. Metal. The average car would be, after I think they estimated after like 50 years in a temperate climate. Literally nothing left but a rectangle of rust on the ground. Why does the idea of a white homeland scare people? Mr. Cartoon Critic, a manga about the free times and paleontologists discovering the fossils of a human and a Utah raptor buried together. Oh my! I can just see that. I can just hear the autistic screeching now. You're in for a ride, son. Fedora-wearing neckbeards will be coming out of the walls at you. I consider myself a superior, enlightened individual because I evolved past believing in such silly things as creation. And how dare you write the story? It's spreading ignorance of dinosaurs and humans. It's simply reprehensible. Double chins wobbling at you. You're fun. People showing up giving me grief, saying that the universe is a little too darned orderly to be an accident. Autistic. Why not Zoidberg? I'm getting sore in the throat here. Excuse me. It burns a bit. I swear. Why are they so horrified by the idea of a white homeland? Let's be fair. Let's be fair. First of all, it's kind of a it's just kind of a poor idea. Look, you had you had black people in America talking about going back to Africa and setting up their. That's where Liberia came from. And I don't know what the story is with Liberia today, but we've still got black people living in America, so the idea didn't exactly go over too great. To be fair, most of the people in history who have advocated, a white civilization, exactly being inclusive to anybody else. But like they for the past 50 years, they've been kicking white people in the teeth, blaming us, claiming that our race is fake, claiming, lying and claiming our achievements to doing what we did, trying to smear campaigns against our iconic heroes and great men of history and women of history, just trying to terminated, and they are astonished, and they are astonished and offended that white men are starting to group together and say, we need to, maybe we ought to start about that whole white, that whole white homeland thing again. Jews have a homeland. I believe they should have it. It's their ancestral homeland. And don't be fooled. There was no such thing as a Palestinian until after the first Jews started returning to their homeland. And then suddenly every goat herder in the Middle East was a displaced Palestinian. No such thing. Anyway, the Jews have a homeland. The Chinese have a homeland. Japanese have a homeland. Africans are always, farting around about the African Mother Africa. It doesn't help that you have a great number of people who want to dismantle what the white man already has. I mean, we have Europe. Right now, they're pushing for Sharia law in Great Britain. What does that tell you? We have a homeland, but we got people that want us to give it up, down and die. But we got a higher principle here. We got a higher principle we adhere to as Americans. I think Americans should have a homeland. Here, the 50 states. And the island, 48 continuous states. Alaska. And Hawaii. And all the little territories here and there. We claimed a common heritage, not based on bloodlines, but on beliefs, on values, which we outlined and preserved in our Constitution, and which we were supposed to pass down in our schools, and our churches, and in our square. That all men have certain inalienable rights. By God. Freedom of association. That these rights were God-given, and we had the right to fight for them. and that it didn't matter what your origins were. You chose to be an American. Be an American. Principle of adoption rather than birthright. If they found the fossils of a human and a Utah raptor buried together, I guarantee it, they would destroy that find. You couldn't walk away. If they dug up a Utah raptor buried with a human being, a dinosaur and a human being together, they would be, the moment you walked away to find a camera, they would drop a stick of dynamite down in it. Hell, the Paluxy Riverbed. The story of the Paluxy Riverbed. They came out there. They drained that river as part of the renovation project. And surprise, down in the riverbed, they found footprints, fossilized footprints that had been buried under the muck and the dirt and under the water since they were made. Human footprints, dinosaurs. Overlapping each other. Crystal clear, but they were obviously real. They brought one guy forward who tried to make a name for himself. Granddaddy carved those. Only problem is to carve them, he would have had to wear scuba gear and been 50 feet below the surface. Then you had other people that tried to claim that they were just duck footprints or, duck dinosaurs, whatever's, and you get that. You try to anything. Well, they had one. Reportedly there was one find. A footprint. It was so clear it looked like it had been made yesterday. Human and dinosaur overlapped, and the guys that found it. They brought out records, and they brought people out. They brought paleontologists out. And according to them, these men took one look at that footprint and started swearing. Cursing and swearing. And then they made the mistake of turning their back on these men. They left the site, but they came the next day, and the footprint had been smashed with a hammer. That is precisely what they would do. They found a discovery so incontrovertible as a human and dinosaur skeleton buried together. It makes did find over the years, and they just ground up and thrown away, or passed off, or tried when they couldn't pass fraud. I'm cynical. You can say cynical. What I am is I know what people will do to preserve a lie. I have met people who will look fairly recently. I know people that will look you right in the eye and lie and lie and lie. You can be standing there holding the proof in your hands. Their evidence all over it. That's not mine. I didn't do that. I didn't do that. And so effective, they could fool a lie detector. I wouldn't put it an inch. Whose entire career revolved evolution to do anything in their power to maintain their state of denial, no matter what evidence you presented to them. It seems to be the primary human talent sometimes. Oh my. Can't get anywhere from there. There's some days I'm at an utter loss. God gives us this mission. God gave every Christian, every person who came to Him and believed and repented and accepted Him as Savior, He gives them a mission to spread the gospel and to convince people with our testimony. And I these people, and the sun rises in the east. And there are people that have just, bat poo insanity. And it's like speaking a foreign language. It baffles me on a level I can't begin to describe. Because I tend to be a very self-doubting person in some regards, and it's very easy to get me to doubt or question at the very least. This is, again, half the reason that I've put up so long with some of the people I deal with. So I got this one guy, like I said, runs errands for me, or did up until recently, and he would give me the most utter bullcrap excuses. I give him my money card, some money out of the bank so I could I'd ask him to go buy a money order for me, for instance, and I'd watch. I could watch the transactions right here. I remember one point he pulled $70 out of my account from a cash machine twice. What is this? And he came back and I pointed at the screen and said, "What is this?" And I said, "Oh, that's a bank error. That's a bank error." And between my own fear of confusion and my own doubts, I've had this happen before. Pulled out and the bank flips for some reason. Buy something. I'll give him $50 item. He'll come back. Here's your change, $10. He's done the things like that. He's got a couple of things that I got to bring back. He has to buy. I have a circular saw. My dad gave it to me. But and he borrowed it 2 days ago. I just need to cut some fiberboard. You mind if I use this? I said, okay, why not? Back yet, and I don't think I will. Last winter, I had, he said, "Oh, you got a little propane heater." I had a propane heater tank. I got an attachment back home that lets you run it off a big tank. If I can fit that on there, so oh, great. I could always use more warmth in the winter. I haven't seen it yet. He goes, does a grocery run for me. Comes back with a receipt. And it's a receipt from Lowe's. So, I see you need storm windows. I bought a bunch of stuff to make storm windows for you. Oh, well, that was nice of you. I appreciate you going. I haven't got a single storm window up in this house. Not one. I've got a nice receipt for the materials. The guy's been using me. I've got but because I doubt myself so much, because I'm like, I could be wrong about this, and I'm afraid to confront him on anything. I could be wrong, Don't ask me why I'm afraid to confront him on it, where I got this conviction that anything I had to, that any conclusions I've drawn are questionable. That I must be wrong about this, But there you have it. So, somebody like me, I'm constantly doubting my own conclusions. I can't understand people. I can't understand these people who can something that is demonstrably untrue. You have the evidence right in front of it that is not true, that it could not be true, that it violates the laws of physics to imagine it being true, and they believe it. I got two people that I owe money who actually did something for me. I got a guy who actually came out here and mowed the lawn and who's coming out here to chop down these weeds and stuff tomorrow. I'm going to pay $50. The girl that picked up my groceries, I got to pay her $30. She's done a couple of errands for me, and I think he's going to. I think this third guy, who has been who I've been dealing with all this time, and who I can't rely on, I think he's going to just sit and wait for I may owe him. Just bring that back to my house. Got that storm window stuff? Bring it back. We'll talk about paying. But I'm going to need to have the conviction of my conclusions. This guy's not mean or a jerk. He's nice. And every now and then he'll do something nice for you, or he'll go out of his way to do something for you. But when it comes to relying for anything, and I suspect, I've got reasons to trust him, but I don't have the confidence to lay it on the line and say, that's it more. I don't want this a-hole trying to drag me in front of the people. He owes me $50 for mowing the lawn. Anyway, understood people who could lie so outrageously, straight to your face, and not a twitch. Not even because they're running a scam. They do it naturally as breathing. I used to work at a donut shop, Krispy Kreme, down in South Charles. And my lord, there was this one guy who was one of the truck drivers. We do donuts at night, and they deliver them to all the stores in the area. And this guy, he would tell just lies. Good example. He claimed to have a Heisman Trophy. I'm not lying. He claimed to on it. He came back to work with one of these little brass, it was one of these little, it was like An old Pee Wee Sport League movie. A really crappy looking one too. He said, "Here, see?" And he said, that is not a Heisman Trophy. Oh, this is just the replica. And he was one of those people. He was what you call a pathological liar. If telling the truth would let him pass, and telling a lie would get him further, he'd spend. I mean, and I looked. How can somebody like that happen? In my life, I fold like wet toast. Picking up to telling a lie is not telling the complete truth. You know. And even then, it's like, oh, he's twitching. We can tell he's something, I have to sincerely believe that what I don't tell them is something they don't need to know. But just so readily, my word. When I say something like, "Oh, I'll get this done next week," and I don't. Okay, is that a lie or prevarication? Make of that what you will. If somebody asks me, like, did you do this? Did you finish that project? Or did you work on that project? Yeah. Well, I've done it a little bit. It's just, that's me. Really gotten my booked here. Outside, and in this trailer, it went up higher. I have both doors open, all the fans going on. My trailer, an easy bake oven. Hold on a second. What? Damnation. Too many. A few things. I don't think that's going to help. Okay, it doesn't look like I'm going to have to shut everything down. It's probably going to be midnight before I actually sit down and do any writing or drawing. But, so for right now, it's just going to be a talkie-talkie show. Is it talkie-talkie show? Is yay. Walmart. I'm always aggravated at somebody. I'm aggravated. But, on advertising, you can read your groceries. You can literally order your groceries online. Back for you or your and they offer that, and they're advertising it everywhere. But they offer it everywhere, all over the place, except here. I could make my life so much simpler. I wouldn't have to put I would just need somebody to pick up. But that's too much. The customer service and convenience in the Marietta area, apparently. Parents, when we were growing up, my parents, they're very conservative, old school. Among other things, they got that whole "do not cause the weaker brethren to stumble" thing going on. So, well, basically anything that anybody else, quote unquote, a sin, we can't do that either. We couldn't go to the movies because going to the movie theaters was sinful and depraved, according to some people. Didn't even believe it ourselves. Dance with the other kids. And that square dancing lesson thing. Because dancing, dancing. Or everybody seemed to think it was, couldn't do this, couldn't go. Absolutely hated. They would have movie premieres on the TV, and they would be doing this commercial about this new. Be sitting there hoping, ooh, maybe it's going to be on TV, and then they had only in theaters. Like, then I knew I'd never see it in my lifetime. I lived way before they had DVDs and VHS tapes and all that. It sucked. Couldn't play pinball games. The arcade games, pinball games, and I'm like, Where are you picking this crap? Like back to other people. I grew up thinking that, wicked and sinful person. This was our childhood. The age of 20 or so, still living with my folk that age. I come into the computer room. There's my dad sitting at the computer playing Doom. He's playing a video game packed to the gills with demons from hell. Just blood, gore, violence, and demons from hell. Oh, yeah. The original Doom, by the way, not the new one that came out. That was years ago. Decades ago. And tiny little voice in the back of my head went, Had also, play the first level, play this, play that piano. And we had this one game. It was in Control. It was really cheap and chunky, but it was where you were piloting it was basically battle tanks with mechas, and they had a music selection. And one of the selections, the title of the rock, it was electric synth stuff as the but because it was called rock and roll, Dad flipped out if we played it. I don't want you to listen to that rock and roll music. I don't want you listening to rock and roll, and we were forbidden from playing it. We had a record, we had a record player. We're talking old school here, and we had a selection of records, old ones, and there was one that Dad bought. It was Snoopy and the Red Baron Christmas. Snoopy and the Red Baron. One side was, about Snoopy and the Red Baron. And the other side had songs by the best. And we were only allowed to listen to one side. The side had that wicked, sinful rock and roll music on it. These are the sit down every Saturday night and watch what it is. Na was a show where they did live performances of 50s rock and roll. Parents, married couples, parents to be, please Raise them in a good home. Raise them in a godly home. Raise them in a Christian home. But for crying out loud, don't, one, do biblical commands, and two, make sure that your personal values didn't get lost. Because you're not helping yourself or the kids in. And they would be so outraged, angry, and offended if they heard me. Their values. I would be in for a 5-hour sermon. About how I needed to respect my elders, and about how you was a pastor of the church, and you needed to respect the pastor, and blah 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 blah. And I have, and I studied the Bible longer than you've been alive, and of course, my father. I've always had the impression my father is of the opinion that I'm an idiot. You argue with things with your father, even if he lets you. You talk to him, you argue with him, you disagree with him, and he dies, and yeah, I brought you into the world. Once in a blue moon, they'll actually get him to back down and admit, no, there's no belief practice. Just, it's just a habit and tradition Christian, or that the church is falling into. And then you come back, he doubles down and won't back off of that attitude or that practice. As a joke, why Baptists are afraid it might lead to dancing. Sometimes read their questions and answers, and they had made up. They violated to uphold their traditions. And Christians will sit there and laugh how foolish those Pharisees were for making and using it to replace God's law. And then we go back to And we've probably done it worse than they ever did. We've had 2,000 years to rack up some really impressive earthly, worldly, human traditions, make them, and on the inside of the box, we can't see it. Line 2 and ostracize, outcast. But you can't do every other human interaction. God's law, what he said was right and wrong. We replace it with a better system. Our practices. And then when they don't work, we keep adding to them and adding to them and making them more draconian than even the most so-called restrictive path. Human nature summed up. The entire law of God. Law fits into a single book. The Constitution fits into a handful of pages. The Ten Commandments. The governing the state. Almost a out. Night though, it's been about fun. Had some talk. Had some in some elbow grease working later tonight when it's nice and cool. I take commission. Just if you're new here, just stop by www. Or go to my Patreon site, www.patreon.com. I will see you later. Y'all take care of yourselves. Say a prayer for me, because God knows I need all the prayer. Good night, guys.